I feel very blessed. An opportunity to see how wonderful people are. Opportunity to see more of the good in the world and the incredible love that people have for others. It's not a lot of people that get to see that.
Once the doctors found I had primary sclerosing cholangitis, they said, we need to get you listed for transplant as quickly as possible. And I said, there's nothing wrong with my liver? What are you talking about? It took a long time to find out what it was. Doctors told us that I'd probably had this for years, maybe even a decade. It just kind of lingers in the background. He did say fatigue is probably the #1 symptom, and I'm able to look back and think, yeah, well, I just thought I was getting old, right? I had times where I'd go months that were just really hard for me to get up and have the energy to do much of anything. You know, I've definitely noticed that it's kind of going on the downhill slide.
He was always on the go, on his bike, cycling, even in the snow and the ice. Always out wanting to hike and do things. And then the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen where, let's go for a hike, Dad. Okay, let's go somewhere close by, or mid-hike, I need to sit down.
Just because you're listed doesn't mean you're getting an organ. There's never enough organs. There's never enough supply to meet the need that is out there. And so, the people who are the very sickest are going to be the ones who get the transplants first. A challenge with PSC is that it doesn't present like most other liver diseases do. Someone with PSC might go years listed for transplant, and they feel terrible, and they are sick, but they just never get sick enough. There's a fine line between being sick enough to get a transplant and still being well enough to be able to handle a transplant. So that does present a challenge. I mean, you just can't walk up to someone and say, hey, want to give me your liver? Okay, we'll just put it on Facebook, why not?
I honestly didn't expect people to respond. We'll see what happens.
From work and stood at the other end of the table, and my wife was on Facebook, and she said, hey, let me share this post that Amber,
Joe's wife.
Yeah, Joe's wife Amber posted on Facebook. And so she read her post about Joe's best chance is for a living liver donation, and then provided some information about what kind of person would be an ideal candidate.
It was pretty detailed. It was like height, BMI, blood
age.
type, age, but it described Paul. And I said, this describes you. And Paul said,
yeah. Joe Isaacson will get a significant portion of my liver. His liver will be removed, and a portion of mine will be inserted in.
and Paul's will grow to fill up the cavity that was left behind, which that was kind of cool to learn. And so in 3 months, 90-something% of it will be grown back, which was stunning to us.
That's amazing. I love being a dad, if that's not obvious, and a husband. That is the most important aspect of my life. And I know Joe loves to be an active father and husband. And so the possibility for him to be the kind of dad that he wants to be, but he hasn't been able to be for the last few years, is just a huge motivator.
It's scary to think that your dad is going through something like this, but to think that if it works, that you'll be restoring someone else's dad to their family, it makes all of it worth it.
Good? All right, everybody got it?
Father in heaven, we're so very grateful.
Surgery is a week from today. We're kind of excited at this point to just get it underway because I feel like the quicker we can get things underway, the quicker we can get both of them recovering. They have a running joke about being down the hall from each other, and they're both so competitive, so they'll be, egging each other on with how far did you walk today, and, those types of things. So I think Amber and I are just anxious for them to be doing that. Let's get on the other side. Let's get them both healthy. And then let's go hiking as a family. Let's go do fun stuff together. Teach me all that I must do to live with him someday.
Piedmont has never had a living donor liver patient, so this is exciting that this is going to be our first living donor liver transplant. I think there's been a lot of anticipation and a lot of excitement. You kind of hear the buzz, maybe a little bit of nervousness, but mostly excitement. And I'm just happy for these patients too. They're just really special group of people, and so I think it's gonna be good.
Hey there.
Hey.
How are you? Doing all right? Welcome back.
Thank you.
So, are you feeling ready?
Yes.
Good. So, the surgery itself is a living donor right hepatic lobectomy, meaning we're taking the right side of your liver. We'll be going through an incision that's basically an upside down hockey stick. In your case, you're going to have about 40% of your original liver remaining, but 60% of it is going to Mr. Isaacson. And in 3 months, your liver is going to grow back to almost full size.
Now for Joe, that will not happen, right? It will not grow much?
It will actually. So it will grow. It's not going to grow as quickly as yours, but his will grow.
To standard size?
Well, so standard size is all dependent on the patient's height and weight and their blood flow from their artery and their portal vein. But everybody's grows after these surgeries, and how much it grows depends on how much space there is to fill and how much it needs to grow to sort of get back to what it thinks is a normal function.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
So I was getting a contrast MRI, and so we had an IV, and so I felt a little drip on my arm. And I thought, oh, maybe that's blood. No, I'm not gonna think about that. So I started to put the gown on, and just my luck, and I'm not looking at anything, just my luck. Some blood drips on the floor. I'm like, oh no, here I go. I woke up and the lab tech was in front of me saying, sir, do you know where you are? That was my first day in this whole process.
I think whenever you do something that's novel and it'll maybe a little bit more pressure, when you do a living donor liver, if there's a major complication, meaning death or life-threatening disease or the need for the donor to undergo a liver transplant because of a complication, is about 1 in 1,000. So that doesn't sound super high, but you're taking somebody who's a normal, healthy adult and you're doing a procedure to them that doesn't need to be done, but that they're hoping to do to help somebody else. And so you have to do it as perfectly as possible. And if the risk is 1 in 1,000, well, that's a fairly high risk. Some institutions decide that they don't want to take on the risk, and I think at Piedmont we decided that it was worth it for our patient population to provide the service. MELD stands for Model for End-Stage Liver Disease. It was a fancy logarithmic equation where you just plug in 3 numbers. And those 3 numbers spit out a number between 6 and 40 that tells you how severely ill somebody's liver is. Anybody with a MELD score over 15, it has been shown that they are better off receiving a liver transplant than not in terms of their overall life expectancy. The problem is getting a MELD score of 15 isn't high enough to get a liver because the deceased donors are not plentiful enough to transplant all the patients on the waiting list. And every year, probably thousands of patients are lost because they don't get transplanted quickly enough to get better. Joe has primary sclerosing cholangitis, and we're not going to be able to transplant him with a deceased donor liver because his MELD score is lower. But we know that every time he gets sick with an infection, he has a small but sort of quantifiable risk of death. And every time he gets sick, he gets a little bit weaker and spends a little bit longer time in the hospital. So we're trying to stop that course from happening and let him get back to a normal life.
I'm a little more anxious than I was last time we talked, but that's okay. Not terribly anxious. I don't have to do anything. I don't even have to go to sleep. They put me to sleep, so my job's easy.
Dude. Oh, all right. You look great.
You look better, man. Here we go.
Hey, you ready? We're
Yeah.
ready. Me too. Let's do this.
Check it.
We only have one because we completed it.
Does it ask if that's Danish or sure?
Not that soon.
Yeah.
Not that soon. Oh.
All right, and then we'll go J team. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
J
team.
Why does everybody have these shirts that say J-Team Adventures? We like to be adventurous, and this is definitely an adventure. So we had a number of friends that were excited to get them, and a bunch of people will be wearing them today. And the idea is that while I cannot go out and have adventures right now, they will wear the shirt and go have an adventure in my behalf, and take a picture and share it with everybody. And then that is actually a liver. But it kind of looks, we think it looks more like an armadillo that lost his hind legs and his tail, but it's a liver.
So what we're gonna have you do, sir, is everything will come out. The gown will go on, open up the gown, will go to the back, the park, and the rest in the front, okay? Everything, shoes and everything is in these bags and clothing, okay? And the nurse will be right in with you, all right?
Sounds good.
My pulse is fast. What is it?
88.
88. Good grief. That's fast. That's crazy.
All right, so I'm just gonna feel on you. I'm not gonna open it up. Just wanna
Yeah, don't open me up
a
yet.
little bit of ascites, huh?
I think so.
A little bit in
I
there,
think
feels
so.
like, yeah.
I've thought it's been getting a little bigger.
How about legs? Any swelling?
Almost every day when if I wear like crew socks that are halfway up my
Okay.
calf, when I
All
take
right.
them off, you can visibly see it.
So I guess we're doing this at a good time then.
I don't want any more swelling, that's for sure.
You saw the team out there. I told them I want a T-shirt, and
We can probably do that.
you're gonna have the longest day because
Yeah.
while the donor is sort of a fixed amount of time, and hopefully he'll be done by about 1 o'clock, 1:30, something like that. You will start a little later
Yeah.
and end later,
To
obviously.
make sure he's good. No harm to my friend.
I understand. I
I know
understand.
that. Sounds
All
good.
right, man.
Appreciate you.
See you this
very much.
afternoon.
Alrighty.
There's a lot of coordination, especially with living donation. It adds a layer of complexity, and everything's got to be timed right. And it's sort of like a choreographed show. It's got to go smoothly, and you don't get any retakes. It's only one shot.
I mean, all of us, physician or not, surgeon or not, do this because we love it, and it's a calling. It's not a job. So it's always in any hospital. The transplant people are like kind of a different breed of people. It's just very obvious here that everybody really loves to be here, loves to do what they do, and really, I mean, we love the patients.
Feels very calm. Everybody's very calm and collected and just kind of business. It's a good vibe in there. When there's no excitement, that's a good thing.
When we divide the liver in half, the force that actually cuts through the liver is water jet. And so the force of the water will just push things apart, but it's not so strong that will rupture blood vessels and things like that. But you're working kind of, it's like a few cells at a time almost. The liver is deep, and so every step of the way they have to do it really precisely and make sure that they're doing it perfectly. So the way that I usually describe it is branching like tree branches, because they go up into the liver and then peripherally they're smaller, and it's a three-dimensional object, so they crisscross each other and you can't just cut right through, and it's just tiny bit at a time because you have to control each of those structures that branch and crisscross all over the place, so that actually as you do it, it's very dry. I mean, there's like very minimal bleeding, if anything, because you're controlling every little thing, every little step of the way. The liver that gets put into the recipient will grow to be sufficient size that they need. The remaining liver in the donor will also grow to the size that they need, so that you can get 2 full-size functioning livers out of one, because the liver is the best organ in the body and it's the only one that regenerates, and it's amazing.
When you take a liver out, you always have to know that there is no form of liver support or dialysis, and so we time it very carefully. We make sure that once we know that the donor liver is good and is appropriate in all ways, then the recipient team can move forward with the operation, so they don't actually do anything that is irreversible until we give them the go-ahead and say everything looks good.
Okay, yes. So they're still closing. So Dr. Pollinger's still in there right now. So he'll come out and talk to you whenever they're finished. But it looked good. It was all shiny and nice and pink and looked great.
Okay,
so yeah. I think everything's gone as expected. I asked Dr. Cosme, I said, is it okay for me to tell the family that? And he said, of course, of course. So yeah.
Good. That's what we want to
expected.
hear.
Yes.
Good stuff.
So, whew. Long afternoon, but good. So the portion is in with Joe now.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're sewing that in now.
Paul's case went beautifully. He's just waking up now. He's going to be going to recovery. And the liver is actually already sewn in, and they're actually reperfused, and it looks good. They're not done, but they're getting there.
Okay.
So everything really went really well. They're both going to go to the same ICU. It'll be 4 East up on the 4th floor.
Okay.
Paul's going to spend a couple hours in recovery. Going to watch him and just make sure he's doing okay, his pain's controlled, but really the case went very, very smoothly. So they just reperfused, which means they've given the donor liver blood supply.
Okay.
They're making some of the connections. They're doing the artery now and then the bile duct. It'll probably be another 2 hours before they're come speak with. We're very excited. Awesome. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
We're not done, but and we actually have another liver transplant to do later tonight.
That's what we heard.
But it's all good. All good.
You guys are awesome. Thank you for all you do.
Guys.
In the recovery room, they came and got me and took me back to recovery, and he doesn't remember any of it. But when he came to, he was excited to see me, but then his very next question was, how's Joe? And then he would fall back asleep again. And then the next time that he would wake up, those were his questions all over again. You know, I'm so excited to see you. How's Joe?
I saw Joe last night. He said, you didn't have to go through that. You didn't have to go through this. I did. I had to go through this. He said, you didn't have to. And there's been some very tender moments.
How are ya? Good. When I came in yesterday, Joe had woken up while I was gone during the night, and he wrote out on his piece of paper, first was, I love you with an exclamation point, and then, how is Paul? And then 4 more times, how is Paul? How is Paul? That was so awesome when he came in yesterday. And they came in and said, you have a visitor. And Paul came in, and Joe, it's really like the first smile we've had since surgery. And they did a fist pump and love you, man. And pretty much Paul needed to go back and lay back down too. But it was just really cool to see them for the first time. It was really cool.
Goodness, he's walking.
Woo! Hey, man. Oh, you look fantastic. Look at
better.
you. You look so good.
You look better,
yeah. I've been through a little less than you have. You look fantastic. Thank you.
Everybody says my color's back a little bit. Thanks for coming by. It's great to be on the other side.
What was it like when you first saw Paul walk through the woods?
Yeah, I was jealous.
We're a little competitive, aren't we, Joe?
A little.
Yeah.
But I was thinking how miserable I felt. And I thought, this isn't fair for Paul. He didn't have to do this. I did. He didn't have to go through it, but he did. Thank you.
Have the team. Have the team.
I know who he is. We know why we're here. We're here to help each other. Love you, bud. Love you so much. Thank you. I made it.
People are amazed to hear, first of all, that I've had a liver transplant. Like, wow, that's a pretty big deal, huh? Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. And then I'll mention, and it was really unique because I had a living donor. Very often a remark of such, wow, he just must be your absolute best friend. You know? He is. He's a pretty dang good friend. He's awesome. Not a day goes by that I don't think about Paul and what he's done for me. Not only did he get the organ for me that I needed, but the liver from a deceased donor that I would have used 2 or 3 years down the road is now available for someone else. So Paul made a difference for 2 people.
It's been an amazing journey. I think we both said that the whole way through. It's just been absolutely amazing.